It was like a mini, like there was a, I don't know if you know, Great Neck South had a whole film recording television studio, and a lot of schools have that now, but they had it many years ago, and it was they put a big bucks into it, and they actually had like a somehow you could occasionally watch it on public access. It was
You could actually
cool.
watch the stuff that you guys were doing.
Yeah, I didn't participate in that. That was more affiliated with some reason the middle school, but it's a really nice studio. I don't know if they must still have it, and it was pretty cool. It was very unique, and the teacher's name was Mr. Gluck. I think he retired, but it was a big deal. He was enamored with, I think, Supergirl, the actress who played Supergirl. Many years ago. She went to South, I guess, or North, one of them, and I think the studio was shared by Great Neck North too. But it was a pretty big deal, and there was like a lot of people end up going into the business as a result of that experience. So it's a pretty interesting program. And if you're ever looking for an intern, there's like a gajillion kids who you can probably get from there.
I definitely want to find an intern because it just helps to scale the company.
Yeah.
I'm trying to that's the point that I'm at now. The point I'm at now is just scaling the company up where I can, as opposed to just being the person that works in the company, which that's the hard part.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I was about to say, because you must feel that on a lot of different levels.
I know I'm losing opportunities by not trying to bifurcate myself in a way to get other people to do what I'm doing more. But the problem is I always kind of rationalize doing things manually myself. Because I'm like, well, I learned something new while I was doing this, and I wouldn't have learned this had I had somebody else doing it. So I'm like, it was good that I was doing this. We're doing a test batch, or so there's times where you're like, oh, I had to make all these changes, or I learned a new thing about how to make this process quicker. So you're like, when do I get myself out of the process, or when do so?
It's a tough balance. It's literally a balancing act. I mean, you got your number one salesman right here.
Right.
I mean, that's for sure. Right there, you got your number one salesman with us today.
Yes.
Thank you. Pops, I listen. I loved seeing. I told you when I first met you guys at the farmers market, I absolutely loved seeing you guys just do your thing and hang out. And you were. I mean, you roped me in. I mean, come on, you want to come take a look at this? Come on, come over here. And he starts the pitch off, and it's perfect though. It's not even a pitch for sales. It's a pitch because he loves you and loves what you're doing, and he's proud of you. For real.
Thank you.
You could tell and you can see it, because otherwise he wouldn't be here. Let's be honest. Like if he didn't have that vision and he didn't believe in you and he didn't love everything that you're doing, he wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why, listen, truthfully, I thought I was just going to sit down with Dave, but I'm happy to sit down with you too, because you're part of the team. Let's be honest.
Thank you so much.
Cool.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. So, we got to meet a year ago or so at the farmers market.
Are we recording, by the way?
Oh, we're recording. We're recording. Yeah. We're recording.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, no, we're recording. That's kind of how I do it. I go right.
By the way, we're recording.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not.
Sometimes they'll be 45 minutes in. No one will even. No one will even realize. They'll be like, "Did we start?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, we've been doing this for 40 minutes." They're like, "What?" Like, yeah, we've just been hanging out. So we met a year ago at the farmers market. You got me very interested, especially when you said dog treats, because I got my man Kenji right here, and
he's chilling.
He's hanging out right now. He's just kicking it, man. He just likes hanging out. That's it. And that's something that's big for me, is the single ingredient everything. I mean, I try to do it with myself, and especially the dog, because we only have them for so many years on this planet. So you might as well give them the best that you can, because they're part of the family. Let's be honest. So there is a lot more to you, though, than just creating single ingredient amazing dog treats. So I know you're a Cornell graduate with a background in...
food science, focused in food science, yes.
Food science.
Yes,
and
my major is food science with a kind of food engineering sub-focus, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. I mean, did you always have the passion for it? Did you always think that you wanted to be involved in that?
I've had a lot of different interests. I like architecture. I love airplanes, aerospace, but I had, nice Jewish parents, somewhat overprotective, but
I said, no. The Italians and the Jewish parents, the Italian parents, Jewish parents, all the same. My mom's overprotective to the nines.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, like as you said, you were a little cautious about setting up the studio. I was, I always liked tinkering. I'd like model airplanes and I did model rocketry as a kid in school, and so that got me interested in that stuff. But with food, I always like just reading cereal boxes, reading a label of anything, and just being curious about what it was. It wasn't until I did track. So I was captain of my high school track team my senior year, and I loved running, and I was like kind of into sports nutrition. So I thought, well, maybe there's like a competitive edge here. I always felt like, there definitely was something going on biologically, but these are the early days. I'm 46, turning 46, and early days, the Power Bar was a nutrition bar that it came out. It was the first nutrition bar, I think, and it was like basically it might have a tiny bit of protein, soy protein, and it was maltodextrin, corn syrup, extruded, very thick. That thing was like a rock. If you let it sit long enough,
You're cracking a molar on that thing.
yeah, it was horrible. And you're like, but I gotta eat it before the race.
Yeah.
And so it was hard. It's really a piece of crap. I mean, they probably improved the formula, but really, like maybe I would hope a little bit just to keep it from turning into that block. And it was so I was interested in nutrition bars specifically, and then I had learned about in high school some other food sciencey things, Olestra, which maybe you've heard of. It was, and this is before it was the days of fat substitutes. Fat was what was unhealthy.
It was getting it demonized, like the margarine and all that stuff.
Yes.
And don't eat any of that.
And partly so, like trans fats were horrible, like your body can't metabolize them properly. But the fats were a big deal. So Olestra, for people who don't know, was a very unusual molecule. And I liked chemistry. I wasn't the best student but Great Neck South, great high school, as was North, and very competitive. So I wasn't like the best student, but I was a good student. And it's just incredible how many kids went on to great schools. But so it was very, in a way, Great Neck was a great school because you went off to Cornell and like there were more smart kids, but there were tremendously smart kids also at South for a public school. So you never felt like, whereas other people go to Cornell from growing up from schools where they were like the valedictorian and they were like tremendously depressed because they felt like they were the smartest. They would go to Cornell and they were like, but I was at Great Neck South and knew I wasn't the smartest. And so it wasn't that intimidating to go there because I was already surrounded by a lot of smart people in high school. So anyway, but long story, I got about track and Olestra. That was and energy drinks help talk quickly.
Yo, let me just break this down. You are so good. Don't even worry. We get into like so many side convos when we do the podcast. We get all over the place.
I may confuse people, but
no, you're good.
I'll try to keep it on topic.
You are good.
Olestra, a cool molecule, even though you shouldn't really eat it.
So what is it used for if you shouldn't eat it?
It's used for as a fat substitute. So in place of any type of fat you might find in it, especially like fried food, the biggest usage was by Frito-Lay's, biggest potato chip manufacturer in America, came out. They were like, this was the holy grail product that Procter Gamble, actually, their laboratory, chemical laboratory, food scientist laboratory, came up with this molecule. It was a sugar molecule. It's kind of crazy. A sugar molecule, but instead of a sugar molecule is surrounded by OH groups, hydroxyl groups around it. And they're actually chemical bonding points of a molecule. OH groups can actually, because an oxygen molecule has free electrons, and within chemistry, you can bond another molecule to those free electrons. Those electrons can become bonding pairs and bond another molecule. And so what they did was they took a fat molecule. They took a fat molecule and attached a sugar molecule, kind of
to one another.
In a way. So
they use them to bridge each other.
Yeah. So specifically, a fat molecule is kind of unusual. The chemical name is a triglyceride.
Yes.
So you heard
right. You get those levels checked with the blood work.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's the terminology. Check your triglycerides sounds really fancy than saying check your fats, because fat would mean like check your body fat. Yeah. But check your triglycerides is a little different, even though triglyceride's fat. Triglyceride is 3 fatty acids and a glycerol molecule. Glycerol is same as glycerin, same molecule. Glycerin is a 3-carbon backbone molecule, and it has hydroxides as bonding sites. So it bonds to a fatty acid. Fatty acids are the long chain molecules. They're we're not getting into the chemistry too much. It's hard without a diagram, but basically 3 fatty acids, glycerol. They took a fatty acid, one of the 3, and stuck a bunch of them around the sugar molecule, and it made this huge, look like an oil, maybe to physically. It had an oil-like properties, but your body enzymes, which have to break down these molecules, doesn't know what it is. So you have no enzyme to actually break down a Olestra molecule.
But it's being used in things that were consumed.
Because physically it has, yeah. So in other words, it just goes right through you.
Okay.
So kind of fascinating. And then you start to realize the ramifications. So what could happen when you eat that? one was the term that a nonprofit organization called the Center for Science and the Public Interest. They got a FDA to require, in order, it was like a deal, like you can pass it legally, let people eat it. It'll be approved by the FDA, but it will. You have to put a warning label that says it will cause anal leakage.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah, to the point. And which was, I guess,
So was that in like the fine print on every
yeah, it
piece
was
of
like
food?
on the back.
Oh, Jesus.
I think on the front.
Oh, it had to be right on the front. Yeah, right on the front. But you know it was like font 4.
I don't remember how big.
Yeah,
it was.
you know it was font 4.
It wasn't font 4, but it was big enough that you
definitely under 10.
It wasn't tobacco font lung. Yeah, it was in between. But Frito-Lay went to production, made it. And I think just enough, like comedians made fun of it, even in that era, and it's just people eventually they were like, "This is not worth it." I don't know exactly, was it the business case or was it? But then there was another nutritional risk in which the vitamins that are fat soluble vitamins A, E, D, and K are the most common ones. Important vitamins, they would leach out of your body, especially if you not directly through your bloodstream. But it would if you ate the chips with a meal, which I don't really know if people were doing, but if they used the Olestra with making a real food, like I don't know, like
Did it have to be fibrous? Because I know pairing sometimes
maybe
the fiber with certain objects kind of pushes them out even better without having those side effects.
Maybe. I mean, fiber is a healthy, slows your digestion, but your body can still get the vitamins and minerals. The oils would kind of solubilize any fat soluble nutrients. So it would end up, because instead of being broken down, it would just solubilize these micronutrients. And so people would not benefit by any of the micronutrients. So it's hard to call Olestra healthy.
Yeah.
So the only use for Olestra was potato chips.
And it was used, you said, for the fryer.
Yeah, for the frying purposes, right, in the fryer. So you couldn't use Olestra in healthier foods because you wouldn't have any vitamins, at least any fat-soluble vitamins. But so it really was like to make junk food healthier.
Well, they're constantly trying to make junk food healthier. They're constantly trying to cut corners and use different things, and it's tough, man. Listen, I'm a big fitness guy, and I love the different supplements that come out of the fitness industry, but you start reading some of the ingredients and you just go, I'm getting into this to try to be healthy, and I'm doing this to be healthy, and it just doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like it's that healthy, some of the items. And you start to question things like, I don't know if you know Jocko. Do you know Jocko, the Navy SEAL?
No.
That's okay. Yeah, Jocko, motivational guy. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. He's got a fitness company. He does a lot of stuff in the jiu-jitsu world. He's awesome.
Okay.
But he also has a podcast, very successful. His supplement line uses monk fruit sweetener.
Okay.
As opposed to the constant sucralose.
Okay.
And I know there's a constant debate between people that are science backed, and they say that it's negligible amounts in the drinks or in the supplements and products. It's like, but at the same time, if there are alternatives that we could be using.
Well, have you ever tried stevia? What's your?
I've tried stevia.
Yeah,
I think it's good.
I think
stevia leaf is good stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you heard?
Monk fruit's a little bit more bitter. I think that's the negative.
I've been having trouble trying. I kind of was tinkering. You can find it in the supermarket, but it seems to have erythritol with it.
Yes.
You ever notice that? And that can have some negative side effects, I think, for your liver or something else. But yeah, you got to maybe kidneys. So I try. But I do use stevia in small quantities, and I found it's pretty nice. Like for a little bit, if you need a tiny bit of sweetness added naturally. If you do too much of it, it's very bitter.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's but pure form. A lot of stuff in the store though, like you think you're buying monk fruit, you're actually getting erythritol.
And so how do you fact check it? How do you make sure?
Well, you got to look on the label.
Will they always list that, or are they going to do the sneaky stuff like with the fragrance, with the perfumes and stuff?
Right, calling it a flavor.
Natural flavor.
I think erythritol is not a flavor, so I don't know if they could do that. That's not because
it's unfortunate though, because you don't know what to believe and you don't know what to actually think about.
Well, when I worked making nutrition bars, so I didn't mention that. So I worked first at Nature's Bounty for 3.5 years. A little more than that, and then 2.5 years at Sweet Productions, a company that was bought by Nestle. It was actually bought by Nature's Bounty and then by Nestle. Nature's Bounty was bought by Nestle, and so they kind of like swallowed up twice, I think. Anyway, so I was already gone, but we made the a lot of different, tons of nutrition bars, but the Zone bar was the big one.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a cool experience because, so the guy I worked under was incredible. I'll say his name was Joe Pizzo. He was incredible. He self-taught. He was the first person to use a crisp, protein crisp in a nutrition bar. And
Like the Apple Crisp bars that I remember from, oh my God, Zone? Was it
yes,
the Zone bar?
so Zone was his bar. So
Yeah.
that was his. He didn't. Barry Sears was the creator of the Zone diet, and he hired, like many people in marketing, had hired this company I was working at. I got there towards the tail end of them making the Zone bar. Abbott Laboratories bought the Zone bar and brought it in-house and built their own factory in California. But it was a cool experience, and he was had an incredible palate. So he,
Joe, right?
that was Joe. He was great. He was such a nice guy, and he was so nice. He didn't want to lay people off when they were losing the Zone bar, so he kept like all of the mechanics and engineers working, and a lot of the workforce. And they eventually had to sell the company. And they had promised me a raise. I took the job and took a slight pay cut from Nature's Bounty, but I was like, I felt like I was worth it. In the end, they were like, "We'd like to but so I ended up not. They wanted me to keep working for free until that's like usually a bad sign when the company is not doing well.
Let me tell you, man. I just had my own stints with a couple of companies that they want you to almost do like all the work for free, and
Ridiculous.
try it out. We'll see if we like it. It's like you see my work, you see everything that I do, you see everything that I've done. Like I don't know, you're talking to me for a reason. So
Yeah.
obviously you like the product that's produced by me. Why is there no compensation involved?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Like I like you guys. I like the mission. I like what you're doing. But at the same time, it's like, well, right now, especially back then, it's a little different. But groceries are $200 a week, man.
Yeah,
I got to get paid. It's just is what it is.
I
Like,
mean, if they're saying, "Oh, we're going to get paid and we'll pay you for the back pay or something," in that situation, sounds like there's just
no back pay.
that's
No back pay.
BS.
No back pay. It's a free trial.
So it was time. That was time. So I ended up leaving. It's kind of rambling, but I ended up leaving that nutrition bar manufacturer. And I was going to business school part time at Brook College, getting an MBA in finance. And I was doing part time working. And then a classmate of mine had introduced me to a job in finance, and it was like more pay, way more pay. And so I took the job, and I knew I was like working in New York City, working in Rockefeller Center. It was exciting, and but I'd never worked in an office before. It was a different life. I was like, I guess I'll do it, but I knew the work was not for me. I was like, well, maybe I'll get towards something that's interesting. And I had an eye on like which departments in banking were maybe interesting. But eventually I got kind of close to it, and I realized none of it was interesting.
Yeah.
And the pay wasn't worth it. Like, even though it was fairly generous, when I was a contractor, became an employee, and when I became an employee, and after all the taxes and everything, you're like, this is, and then the hours were getting worse and worse, and so I was like, you know what, I really missed food science, so I ended up. I was looking to do maybe some sort of healthy snack food, and someone in the East Village, I was living in the East Village, and on my block, there was this beautiful hair salon. All these hot girls were in there, and I'm walking by, and I needed a reason to go in there. So I went in there. I got my sister a gift certificate for her birthday to get her hair done. And
Clutch move.
And so I met. Yes. There's some segue in.
Man, I love it.
So I met this guy who he always had dogs, loved his dogs, and he really had been trying to make a nutrition. He learned I made nutrition bars, and he's like, I want to make a nutrition bar for my dog, and I'm like, and so we worked on it. I made a nutrition bar with him on the side, but it didn't. To me, it never seemed. It's like, I think people have come out with a nutrition bar, but it's sort of like it's too much of a fad thing. I mean, if you could eat it together. And so actually I just came out with a product where I'm filling my apples. So I do dehydration. I can get to that, but I do dehydration. And I was like, well, maybe, you're out for a walk. You want to, if I'm eating something and my dog wants to eat something with me, why can't we share it together? So I have a product.
Food is food.
Yeah, food is food, but not always. So, and they have different nutritional requirements. Like research-wise, dogs are 70% carnivores. We are not. I don't even know what exactly. If I've ever heard exactly. No, vegetarians, vegans will say we're not carnivores. We, obviously. And then what is there's no conventional standard at this point how much meat people should eat. But there's definitely defined amounts of nutrients. I'm not a nutritionist, but I know I've taken quite a bit of nutrition. But you can get. Every nutritionist will have. There's some extremely knowledgeable nutritionists. I won't opine too much into nutrition, but as far as food processing, yeah. So I initially, because dogs are 7% carnivores, jerky just seemed like the most sensible thing. So he and I got a bunch of dehydrators in my East Village apartment, stacked them up, and my apartment became the guinea pig test ground, which was I had a falling out with this guy, and I don't like talking about him, but he's part of the history in a way, so I have to mention it. But yeah, so I had my apartment. It stunk of dried meat. Went to the Hunts Point meat market with backpacks. They had no car even at the time, and we're just getting liver and hearts and dehydrating them because they are really the most nutritious meats. Like we eat, people eat, if you're a meat eater, like just the muscle meat. And the muscle meat is high in protein, and some marbling may have fats, but doesn't have all the nutrients. Like the liver is extremely high in vitamin A, B vitamins, and that's really like if you're just nutrient wise. And they always kind of say when a wolf takes down his prey, it will go for the liver first, and rip that prey open and go for the liver. So the liver is like really nutritious, and I've smelled a lot of liver. I still can't eat the liver because it's so funky.
I was about to ask you. I've never done liver. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I've never eaten.
Can't get over it. No, I can't. I don't know.
Try.
I didn't try that hard. Like I heard the proper way. I'm like,
I didn't really try that hard. I had tons of it.
I have tons of it, but I'm like, still, I've tried a little bit. I'm like, nah. Ugh. So,
well, did you try it prepared or raw?
Threw it on the skillet. No, on the skillet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. Some people eat raw
with onions.
raw liver.
I did the whole thing. Threw it on the skillet with the onions, and that's like the proper way to do it. And I mean, no. I think you have to eat it as a kid. And if you did
work that up in your stomach,
even chopped liver, like supposed to be like, oh yeah, it's meat broth. I'm like, oh man. So yeah, it's okay to not like it. It's just
I've had foie gras, so that's goose liver.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's how much liver is it actually in the end?
It's very creamier, right?
Zhuzh it up, they like put all the foam and everything in it. Like, okay, what is it, like 10% liver now?
Yes, exactly. So I don't know. I mean, I like anyway. I'm not a chef either, but I knew a good amount of.
He cooked dinner last night.
Yeah, made nice burgers, and my dad's very appreciative of. My mom's shout out to my mom, great. She cooks all the time, and but yeah, different. She has her way of cooking, and maybe she doesn't like to saute too much. I love to saute foods. She's more of a bake.
I want to add the conversation.
Please do. Is your mic?
Get up on that mic. But then we got to get back to the East Village.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so stick with that.
Absolutely.
So as far as getting David on the getting to be a food scientist, it was my wife. And my wife is very interested in science and how things work. And no,
you're good. You're good. I'm just watching the levels. You're good.
Okay. So, in fact, and she knew he was destined for a very good college, and she did some she did the research, and she knows Cornell had a food science program, and David always liked to look at the ingredients of cereal. And my wife always encouraged, and he's always interested how things worked and the ingredients.
That Jerry Seinfeld movie was stupid but funny. I enjoyed it.
Which one?
He made a new one called Unfrosted.
Oh, that's right. That was one of his jokes. That's where it came from, I think. It was one of his jokes in his set about Pop-Tarts.
There was another.
And then he had the comedians and Cars and Coffee or whatever that was.
The other comedian starring in it had a huge bit about Pop-Tarts, I think.
Okay.
Did you like the movie? Did you see it?
I have not seen it.
Hot Pockets.
Hot Pockets?
Yeah. Anyway.
It's a very unusual movie.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's silly. It's irreverent. Right. A lot of comedians.
It's very irreverent.
But he loves cereal. I don't know. It's thing just sitting like there's a mystery. I can tell he didn't fully do all. They didn't delve too much into how cereal is made. They never really show. Actually, cereal is made by extrusion.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
They showed no extruder. That would have been genuine if they actually delved into how it was made. It was not. It was more of like it was silly.
So I was going to ask you, and I didn't want to cut you off, Dad. I didn't want. On the topic of cereal, actually, what would you think like with the ultra process and the rates of ultra processed foods and mortality, which is like the studies that are coming out now. So you have things like cereals, and it's not necessarily even the sugars or any of that. It's just how highly processed the actual food is.
Yeah.
Love to get your 2 cents. I mean, listen, it's open forum.
Personally, the only cereal I'm the so-called good cereals still have a ton of sugar in them. I think cereals more as far as ultra processed. What is that term? Is that like it's a new term?
I guess it would like describe a food that has a laundry list of ingredients, but it's a round circle, or it's like a little thing, meaning that we're jamming all of that into something that doesn't even look like the actual ingredients that are going into it.
Well, I say
Because listen,
Yeah.
this stuff way better than I do. You're truth be told.
I think people are very concerned. What does this mean? And it's a sort of a buzzy term right now. Cereal can be made. I mean, it could be very bland without anything added to it. And I personally, I just take like really generic store brand Cheerios with no sugar. If I look for no sugar, believe it or not, you go to Walmart, they got no sugar added Cheerios, their version. And you put bananas in there, or you can put walnuts, you can
maple
put
syrup
pecans.
or something.
You're adding sugar with maple syrup, excuse me. But
I'm saying like that's the sugar I'd rather have.
Oh, if you're going to sugar,
because I do a lot of raw unfiltered honey.
Okay. Oh, it's in a few. Yeah, I mean, all these things you can add to the and then what's going in there. So I honestly don't think there's anything wrong with these companies that are taking just pure oat flour and they're mixing it with some water and they're pressing it through. So the extruder. So you have this dough.
Get up on that mic.
You have this.
You can bring it to bring it up into you if you want.
Sure.
To too. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So extrusion, I think in a way is an amazing process. I think it's a great machine because it's a way of making food economically, large quantities. Because honestly, like food is a volume business. You have to make a lot of it to make it affordable. Economy of scale. There's a lot of time it takes to set up in a large industrial environment. Cleaning the machine, getting it fully ready for the food to be cooked, and so extrusion is nothing wrong with extrusion. So a lot of cereals, it's really the choice of ingredients and sugar being a bad one. So
what's the process of extrusion?
So the first the food is hydrated. So let's say it's oat flour, so milled oats. So oats are rolled. They're a grain that you have the seed portion of the oat. And it's typically rolled. I don't know if they start with rolled oats. It may not even be necessary. It could be the unrolled oats, but usually oats are rolled. I think during the rolling process, there's like hot rollers that dry the oat as it's rolled, and when it comes out, it's pressed and condensed. You see rolled oats like oats, perfectly really healthy food, one of the healthiest grains you can have. And there's like different versions of oats, like slight variations. It's kind of complicated, but basically
steel cut, quick.
Yeah,
oats,
like type of. It's all just like how fine it's milled and stuff like that. But then when they have these oats, they're chopped up really fine to a flour powder, and then added with water and maybe some other so what are the other ingredients? There may be vitamins, minerals added, maybe which you can debate whether you need that or not. But whatever the purpose is, some of it, like the FDA may even require they call it fortification for like children to get make sure that they're getting their vitamins and minerals in their diet. So you get that, and then anyways, point is you have your oats as a dough, goes into this machine. It's a huge machine, very long. It's a barrel. They like a gun, but it's very big and it has a screw, and it's a very precision screw where the gap between the screw and the inner wall of the barrel, it may be a single screw, it may be a double screw. Those are the most really. So
when you say that, you mean like a corkscrew almost?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's how it fine tunes everything going through?
Yeah. So there's the screw will have a transferring phase, then like a mixing phase, and then so the screw is designed with different diameters, and eventually it reaches a point where it generates a lot of pressure, and the pressure generates heat, and the barrel itself may be heated, and that's sort of similar in a way to it's not a good analogy, but people in the plastics world, they actually have a similar thing. It's actually a similar type of machine, which may be kind of gross to know, but they don't interchange. Like a plastics extruder, they're putting plastics in. A food extruder, they're putting food.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past anybody at this point.
No.
Not microplastics that you hear about and all this stuff. I mean, you never know.
Scary, but I don't think you couldn't use a food extruder to make plastics, nor vice versa.
No, I'm not insinuating that. I'm just saying. You wouldn't be shocked if you did find out 10 years from now that
somewhere
some random
in China
person
or
was
India,
doing it.
I don't want to be racist or anything, but maybe there's some cut corners. And actually, anyway, we got going down that tangent, but there was like horrible, what in 2010 or so, there was something called the melamine controversy. And in China, they were putting melamine in protein powders, such as high gluten wheat flour, which has a lot of protein, or milk powder. And so this was.
And what is that?
So melamine is even I think maybe for countertops, it's an additive to bond the wood particles I'm pretty sure that's the main. It's like urea formaldehyde resin, and I think melamine may be another component of it, or maybe it's the actual board, melamine board. Somehow they're all related. And
what is the point of?
It's high in nitrogen. So nitrogen, when companies do quality control and they buy nitrogen foods such as like even soy protein, or you buy milk powder, they may be checking for protein content, and the test for protein content is nitrogen test called the Keldol test. And so in the laboratory, you detect the amount of nitrogen that it comes off in like
so they're
acid.
spiking it.
Yeah.
So they're making it seem like it's a higher level than it is.
Correct.
Than it actually is, and they're getting it, I'm sure, a larger profit because of it.
Correct. Or yes, I mean, it ultimately boils down to that. And they did this with, and it ended up in infant formula.
Oh man.
So not only your dogs, but even human babies. So it was really so that was just completely unethical and shocking and pathetic.
That's something that I actually spoke to a neighbor about recently. We were talking about dog foods, and they were asking me how I feed Kenji raw and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I just said, listen, look at all the bullshit that we see in people food and humans.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like all the corners that are cut, all the regulations and the red tape that they pretend is there, but they just form different words to have it sound like it's something else, but it's actually the same thing that they don't want you to know that's in there.
Yeah.
So that's for us.
Yeah.
Now imagine what they're doing with dogs.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And pets and animals as a whole. I mean, if we really are going to sit here and think that these lobbyists and bill passers and all these different regulations that we hope would be put in good jest to keep our animals and our best friends safe, they're not. They're unfortunately cutting the corners for the end all be all, which is the profit margins. And how can we put this product out there as cheap as humanly possible, make the most money?
Yeah.
And hey, it is what it is. I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow, because you think that these people that own these companies are dog people or pet. I keep going back to dog, but animals in general. That's kind of what you have to sum it up as.
I think there's always the industry wants less regulation, but and I don't know if the consumer wants it or not. They want to make sure that what they're buying is
when it says chicken, I want to make sure it's chicken. I want to make sure that's not dead chickens and carcasses and whatnot. When you have like the meal and all these different terms that people look at it and they go, oh, that looks like it's healthy. Oh, it's got beef meal, or it's got this and that. And then you have individuals like yourself or third party agencies that go and they do the digging and they do the processing and they actually check what is in these ingredients. And then you go, oh, that's like decomposed animals that they're eating. That's not awesome.
It's awful.
And then you wonder why the dogs are having cancer and all these other issues, and they're gaining weight and all this stuff. It's like, well, because they're eating crap.
Yeah,
it's like you're eating the crap.
Yeah. It's remarkable that the level of I don't know if it's greed or it does boil down.
It's a large chunk of the cake.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, one of the biggest mistakes that we make as human beings, and my mom taught me this at a very young age, and it's something that's resonated very heavily with me over the years. We make the mistake that others have the same mind that we do.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's for good and for bad. Yeah. So like when I look at a company that is saying, oh, it's all 100% natural chicken, I expect it to be, because that's what I would do. I would make sure that that's 100% natural chicken, that they were pasture raised, but how many eggs do we have? Like you go, how many buzz terms do we need for eggs? I thought buying eggs just meant the chickens lived, they had a happy little life, we got the eggs, and that was it. Yeah. Well, no. Well, do you want it cage free? Do you want it pasture raised? Do you want it organic pasture raised?
Yeah.
What about regular? It's like, why do we need this much monotony and craziness throughout all these different terminologies? Just, I want eggs. Why can't my chickens just be happy and just do eggs? And I know it comes down in some terms to producing on mass scale and having to have a lot of abundance to produce to all of these different clients across the nation, across the different states.
Yeah.
But I mean, you tell me the chickens need to live in these huge like sweatshops? That's what they basically like. And you watch that and you go, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Like, how is that going to be healthy when we consume that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's messed up. There's within that, that's all agriculture. Also, there's like, how is agriculture done?
I mean, I went it vast through dogs to people to everything. But
my specialization, though, I don't want to speak for agriculture in general. But then there's also like the food industry is extremely efficient. overall, and the for better or for worse, but the byproduct of all this meat we eat, and that's a big proponent of why they're saying we need to be more more vegetarian or vegan. Is I think it's a much more efficient use of resources and better on the environment. But what did people all these? It's what do people use after you slaughter an animal for consumption? There's a lot of other stuff, and that's it's very inefficient. And I think that it was always sent towards the pet food industry for many years. And that's where the term meal, for your viewers who don't know, if you see on a pet food the term beef meal or lamb meal or chicken meal, it's a rendered protein, so it's not considered edible for human consumption. Is anything that's rendered, because rendering is where you try to get the residual protein left. So at the slaughterhouse, one of these really tough jobs that mainly immigrants do, which credit to whatever your opinion is on immigration, but these are tough jobs where you're the assembly line like environments where they're chopping up the animal, the carcass, and the leftover meat gets grinded up, and so there's something called mechanically deboned, which you may see. That's for one way of removing the meat, and what happens is a similar type of extruder machine, but it's pressing the meat, grinding it to a pulp, and then that goes so hot dog meat is mechanically deboned, just so you know. Whether or not, and there may be also, I think, hearts in there, which is actually not bad for you. Hearts are really so.
But what quality of heart?
Yeah, I don't know.
Quality?
Yeah. So
I buy meat from Force of Nature,
okay,
company in Texas. They do all regenerative farming.
Oh, regenerative.
Regenerative. Yeah, regenerative.
Okay.
So everything is like on their lands, all pasture raised, everything, and they use every part of the animal for everything.
Wow.
But one of the grinds of meat that they have is their what are they called? Ancestry blend, and it's the ground beef. Okay. But it also has the heart and the liver ground up into it.
Nice.
So you don't taste it.
Wow.
At all. It just tastes like ground beef.
That's great.
So it's like you're getting the benefits from the heart and the liver, and you just feel like you're eating ground beef.
Yeah, that's so
I think there's 10% heart and liver in there.
Okay.
But stuff like that, I mean, at least it's coming from their farm.
Yeah.
They talk a lot. They're very open on their social media. They show
you're already eating liver and heart. Yeah,
a little bit here and there.
Nice.
Without pivoting too much, because I want to stay on this, I thought I had hemochromatosis for a while because I
remember you mentioning that to Noah, I think.
Because my iron was high.
Okay.
And my ferritin levels were actually what was high, but I wound up realizing it was probably more inflammation or over the years of absorption.
Okay.
And I donated a couple of times and my levels went down substantially, thankfully.
Huh.
And then I decided, let me just get the genetic test done. So at least I know I'm not just guessing.
Yeah.
At least I'm not but just because my ferritin was high, I have it. It's like, no, let me just do the due diligence and get the actual genetic test done.
Okay.
So when I got the genetic test done, everything came back negative. So I was like, okay, so at least I don't have that because I don't drink. I stopped drinking last year.
Good.
I don't drink. And the big thing for me was if you have hemochromatosis, there's a lot of people that go undiagnosed and die of cirrhosis of the liver.
Wow.
Because it's so taxing, the iron starts to store in your brain and liver. So for me, I just wanted to make sure that we were good. So I was eating that blend all the time and I was like, let me just pause that for a second. I don't want too much iron.
Did you ever find out how you're getting so much iron in your diet? Or
you know what? I don't know. Years ago, I was eating a lot of red meat. Could have been just years of eating a lot of red meat absorption wise.
Yeah.
For a long time, I was drinking a lot of energy drinks.
Yeah.
And they have.
These things give me kind of a headache, actually.
Listen, no offense taken, man. Listen.
Yeah. It could just be I'm dehydrated, though.
It could be. I mean, listen, it's a lot of caffeine. It's 300 milligrams for a can.
Oh, my.
For a can. Yeah. So it's 300 milligrams for a can for this one.
Yeah. I'll slow down for sure. I'm not drinking fast.
What I find amazing about these is that they have all the vitamins that they say in this, but the B12 is something that all these energy drinks, they put a ton of, like your 250% of your daily allotment.
Yeah. It's very easy to, I don't know if you know that the quantity we're talking about is in the micrograms. The chemical name of B12, it rings off the tongue for me, but cyanocobalamin.
Obalamin, yeah. What's his name was talking a lot about that. The doctor, Dana White, his guy.
Okay.
Gary Brecka. Gary Brecka was talking a lot about that, and he was saying that there was actually a couple of different versions of it that are not good for the human body versus being good for it.
Interesting.
Because it comes from cyanide. Is that what it is?
I don't know how it's made, honestly. Okay. But yeah, it is in the name cyanico. So it has a cyanide molecule, I guess, on it, and we all know cyanide's not good for you.
Yeah.
I
try to keep my cyanide to a minimum. I really do.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, but having when I worked in vitamins, in my early 20s, it was just eye opening to actually see vitamins. That's something many people I don't think. I mean, you can get like a vitamin pill, but I was seeing like huge quantities, or even just work on in the laboratory. I'd make mixes, because my main job at Nature's Bounty was tablets, compressed powders into a pill, and make it very uniform, and make sure it would, and then a capsule. It's just basically, it seems simple enough, but getting a good blend and making sure it fill into the capsule. Eventually, that's why I wanted to leave, because it was kind of dull, but I was good at it, and made the machines just run quickly. We made Walmart vitamins. We made for everybody. But looking at vitamins, and so now I just like riboflavins, really bright orange, niacin's white.
Yeah, so it burned into your memory.
Yeah, and B12 is super purple. And
really?
Yeah, it's incredibly purple, and it's
so now
how do they color.
How do they take that and then they put it into a drink? They just synthesize
it? So B12 is water soluble.
Okay.
So yeah, you just put it right in. You need a high, we called it overage. It's the excess amount you'd put in to compensate so you'd meet the nutritional claim. So properly and pills are regulated by different laws. So the food labeling is a little different, where you may not put as much overage excess in to make the nutritional claim. This is a nutrition fact. So actually, if you ever notice, it says nutrition facts versus supplement facts. So I think it's like the quantity. I'm not going to give away proprietary trade secrets on the internet, but there's like quantities of.
I'm not here digging for that. Don't worry. I'm not here digging for buzz clips. I promise.
But the quantities, they put extra in of all of these and of these vitamins to make sure that they have enough that it would last up to the shelf life declared on the label. So that's how it works. But
the B12, I found, but that's the reason why I brought it up, was because I was drinking like 2 of those a day for a long period of time.
Yeah, that would mess you up.
And well, not only on that side, but I thought maybe because the B12 helps with iron absorption, that plus the increase in red meat. I don't know if maybe that just increased my absorption rate and storage rate at one point, but the fact that the levels were coming down by themselves, and then plus the donation, I'm glad I got it in check.
I would think also, like over time you get not addicted to but you get, your body becomes desensitized to.
Oh yeah.
So you need more B12 in your diet. So
I wouldn't even say that I was addicted. I wasn't addicted to the B12. I was addicted to the caffeine.
Yeah. That definitely.
Yeah, that was what it was really for. It was like for the energy kicks. I mean, I used to be a pre-workout junkie.
Yeah.
It was insane. Sometimes, and then I want to go back to the dehydrator and everything you, but just I want to see your reaction. So back when I was prepping for bodybuilding, I would actually take 3 to 4 scoops of pre-workout, and it was 250 milligrams per scoop. So I was taking almost a gram of just straight caffeine just to work out, on top of black coffee here and there. I'm shocked I didn't drop.
Yeah.
I'd have to leave the gym sometimes because you're having like a panic attack. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
So
caffeine, it's a real addiction. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it's a drug. It's a different type of drug. Whether you want to say that it's taboo or not, I think there's a lot of people that are in favor of something that does have some health benefits. There are, without question, some focus and some actual health benefits to you, but that comes in moderation. It doesn't come at drinking a gram a day.
Yeah. Anyway,
fish is healthy. If you eat, if you eat a gram, if you eat pounds of fish every single day, you're probably, especially if it's tuna, you're gonna get mercury poisoning. It is what it is.
You eat a natural source of caffeine like coffee. At least you're getting polyphenols, other antioxidants, or fiber. But
which the polyphenols actually help with iron absorption. They decrease it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So drink your coffee a little bit. Good way to get off of it.
Coffee and tea.
Interesting.
But anyway, back to
East
Village.
Okay, so East Village. Okay, so so we started in my apartment, dehydrating, got in some stores, and it was at some point he and I were like, he convinced me the only way to pull the trigger, take a big chance, and rented a factory space, just a raw space in Paterson, New Jersey. Paterson. Interesting history for people who don't know. I think I'm kind of into the history of things. Need a little drink of water.
He almost grabbed it. He was like, 300.
I'm not
you went 300 milligrams. I'm good.
So we rent the space. It was an amazing experience. So we talk about working on the construction and setting up your studio, and I learned I love working. I love working my hands, but I didn't realize how much I like to tinker on things and learn new things. And so I embarked on building this factory, and it was a huge endeavor. So from around April 2014, I turned on my dehydrator September 2015. So every day I was working on, pretty much every day. I mean, I don't exaggerate, guarantee, but it was almost every day working on this space. Converting it, and so I had great appreciation for what Noah had done with his fitness gym, because he went through a hell of a lot of stuff. But my space is 5,000 square feet, and it required so much cleaning, and to get it what it was prior, it was just sort of neglected. And then painting, and then actually building structure workrooms within the factory. So it was carpentry, framing, insulation, tons of electrical, which I love to do, plumbing, which also I enjoy, and there's some HVAC, which is the hardest trade. Did a walk-in freezer. Let's see, just so much. And then the dehydrator, which was sort of like, actually, I did the freezer after the dehydrator, but the dehydrator was like my segue. The dehydrator is what's called hydronically heated. It's a water heated hydronics. So hot water is actually pumped from a boiler, and we can show pictures of it.
I took down the timestamps. So
okay, cool.
If you want to send me them digitally, I'll put them over the top.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
So the hot water passes through a heat exchanger you might find for an air conditioner or for your heating of your furnace. However, it's a specially designed heat exchanger. Maybe the diameter of the pipe is optimized or something. But anyway, so the hot water will pass on its heat very efficiently. So you're not like, dehydrators run at a temperature range, like the lowest you might dehydrate is 110, maybe a little higher, to full blast, like you're really trying to get the inner part. Like I think I max out the dehydrator at 162 Fahrenheit. Okay, so that's really not that hot. And
it's just the duration of it being at that.
Yeah, it's time. It is. We're not I'm running it. The fastest I finished a batch of dehydrating was like a little over 6 hours. So that's minimum 6 hours. And that if I'm running, and that's maybe not a lot of food in the dehydrator. But the more you put in there, the more like moisture has to get pulled out. This energy, it has to evaporate the water. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting physics and chemistry and whatever you want to say, evaporate, all that thermodynamics. So yeah, there's anyway, so how the dehydrator works, basically, I'm trying to visualize. Actually, I have the book right here. I can look at it and give me a little bit of so I can properly explain it. So the interior this is a great example. So it's a huge fan, the 5.25 foot fan. The room is 17 feet long, 14 feet wide. Aluminum sheathing around it, so panels of aluminum. It's insulated. The dry air comes out through the top. And it's heated on the exterior. So here's the boiler, and so the water is recirculated. So it's actually very efficient. It's gas fired, and one of my dreams is to put solar panels on the roof of the building and completely make it like carbon zero. But I already have it set up like this. But perhaps one day, or dehydrator too.
Get that LEED certification.
Yeah, anything. I mean, buzzwords don't. That would be a cool buzzword to have. So that dehydration. Basically, that temperature, that's the operating temperature. And then I have a whole bunch of sensors I kind of added to it so I can really control my process. So you really got to understand better how it works. And the way I do that is you have like humidity and temperature of inlet air, exhaust air throughout the room. I've built up the temperature sensors more. I have ventilation, heat recovery. So it operates. I mean, at one point I calculated, based on cost of gas, to run a batch was $5 in terms of just cost. It's like, that's very efficient. I don't know I think my gas bill is not very high. So I think I'm pretty accurate in that calculation. Anyway, so I feel good, at least, that I know I'm not like contributing a huge carbon footprint, even though it'd be nice to have it completely solar. But yeah, so it's
But you're well on your way.
It's
well
a
on
goal.
your
It'd be a
way.
fun
Well,
challenge. Yeah, I like to build batteries. My hobby on the side is building hobby drones.
Oh,
and
sick.
I build the electrical battery packs for them. So I solder them together.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
I'm
Just
enjoying
a bigger,
this.
a bigger scale. That's all you
Yeah,
need.
just a huger battery pack. Anyway, so it's fun. Anytime you dehydrate something new is like an exciting time. But
How do you know how long to go for?
now I have a starting point, but basically I know time-wise, there's time and temperature, but time, you don't want to over dry really, because you end up with a product that's like usually just really brittle. A dog may like the brittle texture, or the person might like a really brittle texture, but if the temperature is too high, you could get chemical changes where it is starting to caramelize, where an apple might turn brown, or a tomato. I think I had the tomatoes one time a little too high, and some of them turned dark brown.
And when you say too high, you're talking temperature or duration or both?
Yeah,
Okay.
both. So like, if the temperature's really, so I noticed that some commercial dehydrators that are like these like all stainless steel, not big, but all stainless steel, they were 5-10 grand. They had a 2-stage setting. I'm like, oh, that's a brilliant idea. So I added a 2-stage feature to my dehydrator where it can run at, let's say, 135 Fahrenheit, 130, but because the water is evaporating from the food, it's staying cool. And you have this surface cooling. So the food itself might not be very hot, but the water vapor keeps coming off. So and then once that dehydrate, it's no longer cool. It's like as you sweat, you're cool, your skin's cool.
Yeah.
And like dry environments, you don't feel as hot. Whereas in the humid environment, you feel uncomfortable because the sweat or the water on is not evaporating. So then you stage 2, whenever that time might be, you then drop the temperature and you preserve the nutrients better, you preserve the flavors better and the texture. So it's pretty cool. So science is all intertwined related to other things, but yeah, so that applies. And so I got better at that about a year ago. I think I added that functionality to it. So that's cool. And I geek out on adding these things to the dehydration.
That's cool because it's actually making your workflow more. It's just making it more efficient.
More
over time.
efficient, yeah, more efficient.
And it's not even from an energy perspective. It's from a
Time.
actual product perspective. Time, yeah, but it's from a product perspective too, because I'm sure the product is coming out better, more nutritionally stable, and
I can be more conservative in a way because I can now dry much lower because I'm like, well, I can get that moisture out, and then I could, if I were to dry the whole time at one temperature really low, it would never dry. Whereas now I can be really aggressive in the beginning, and it doesn't matter because it's just evaporating off, and then be very conservative at the end and be very gentle on the food. So yeah, so I've noticed that the food is much more flavor, and therefore probably nutritionally. To send that to a laboratory to have everything analyzed would be ridiculously expensive, but I'm assuming that nutritionally it's better as well. So yeah.
And so now the process of doing all this, what has been some of the more challenging foods to dehydrate, or has everything been just pretty much easy across the board?
I mean, like food, like my treats, like the sweet potato treats, to make, like certain foods are just really hard to make palatable for people. Salmon is very difficult too because salmon's so oily. So to make the jerky treats for Canine Bros, salmon, the omega-3s are the most healthy aspect of the salmon, and the oil soaks out everywhere.
Oh, really?
So I've finally, I think, turned the corner, and my next batch I'm going to do of meats, I'm gonna scale up the salmon. But yeah, I'm speaking so much off the top of my head. I enjoy doing that. But anyway, yeah. So it was.
Why don't you give Nick a couple of samples?
Oh yeah, I mean, you want to see? Want to do some tasting here?
We did, yeah. I'll do some tasting. I think, what did I try from you guys? Well, I did try the black garlic.
Okay, yeah.
I did try the black garlic when I was with you guys that time.
Here's a bag of dried pear.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Yeah. So the pears.
You want any more tomato?
Oh yeah. Let's see. Do I have? Oh, this is new.
What's that?
So this is my dehydrated.
Oh, my man just conveniently woke up when there's.
Does he eat fruit?
He won't. No, he's mad stubborn with food. Yeah, it's awesome.
So,
and see, I've dehydrated myself at home.
Ah, nice. What did you try?
I have an Instapot, so it's not as cool as yours.
Instapot it's a dehydrator though.
They have an attachment that's a dehydrator.
Oh, cool. Huh.
So it's the air fryer attachment to the top.
Oh, cool.
These aren't for you. These are pears.
My dad's. So he says this is his favorite new product.
That's your favorite?
Yeah. So that I actually had people. I made first a vegetable jerky. So people were asking me to make beef jerky after seeing all the meats I was dehydrating. And so dried tomatoes, I thought, what could be? How good can they be? So actually, yeah. So I managed to.
You can't have this, ma'am.
He's adorable. So yeah, my vegetable jerky is a separate product, but the tomatoes were so good I decided
The
to
spice
package
is
them.
really good that you have on.
Thank you. Yeah, I worked really hard on getting that spice blend corrected. It was
Is it too spicy for you? Or?
No,
that one has a bit amount of black pepper.
I'm the guy that puts habaneros on the eggs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, sriracha habaneros. I'm good.
Nice.
No, this is really good.
Cool. Yeah. So I
And what's a lycopene?
I should probably and I don't even know if I can put that on there, even though lycopene is in tomatoes, but it's a very good antioxidant. So I wanted to put some marketing selling points on the front. But lycopene it's very good for you, and it's all tomato. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I'm gonna put them right there now.
And then everything is like a little trick, like dehydrating pears. I had to watch the temperature. But I've been getting better at all of them.
And just staring at your dad, bro. You can't have tomatoes.
Oh, boy.
Chicken though.
You can't have tomatoes, man. Yeah, he loves it. So I was very happy to see you in Dick's Sporting Goods. That
Thank
was
you.
awesome.
Yeah.
And Kenji loves the treats. Oh, what's this? Oof. Oof. Thank you.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It's a nice trick.
Yeah, I don't want to teach him how to say. I didn't want to do speak because we always say, in language. So I figured I saw a guy on the internet that if he made the bark noise, then his dog would bark. So I said, all right, let me try it. So I just kind of went, roof, roof, roof. Come on, hey. Oh, he's looking at you. See, he's like, yo, screw this guy. He goes, hey, he's not in control. Oh, good boy.
That is great.
Wow.
Yeah. So I figured that was the best way to train him how to bark.
That's it.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was cool when I saw it. I said, you know what, let me try it. But yeah, he loves the treats. And like I said, the biggest thing for me is just knowing that what I'm giving him is actually real food.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of money every single month on the raw food. I spend a lot of money on the vitamins and fish oil and whatnot, and giving him salmon, like real raw salmon patties and all this different stuff.
Wow.
So it's like, why all of a sudden am I going to skimp on the treats and making sure that he has something that's actually good for him?
Mm-hmm.
And, it's tough. You see, you see a bag of real food that's $10, which I think is well worth it. That's not to say that it's not. It's well worth it. But then you see a lot of people will see a bag for dogs.
Yeah.
$4 biscuits.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, well, I'll just get those. And it's like, oh man, you don't know what's in that though.
Yeah.
$4 today, but thousands at the vet later.
Right.
That's what they don't make the correlation in their mind. And don't you hit my my stand. Come over here. Come over here. So that's unfortunately the
Aw.
because it's on wheels. So
Oh.
he'll move it.
Oh, it'll be repositioned.
Yeah, he'll move it. But that's unfortunately one of the thought processes that doesn't occur in people's minds right out the gate.
Yes.
It's like even when we're grocery
Yeah.
shopping for ourselves,
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'll just buy a bunch of chips for snacks instead of maybe some fruit.
Yep.
And having something that, okay, it's a little less convenient to eat than chips. Like, yeah, okay, somebody doesn't want to take the apple around or it goes bad and whatnot.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's like, well, you're getting the nutrients. You're gonna feel better. Your body's gonna thank you in the
Yeah.
long run.
Yeah.
That chips, you don't know what that's doing to your insides over time.
Yeah. And I think, for my business, I hope to. Right now, I'm selling out everything I make pretty quickly, so
Love that.
That's why I kind of can have the price a little higher because it's so much work for just me. But I'm hoping to eventually get the volume where I can have consistent orders. Right now, I'm kind of making it. I need a full time. It has to be a full time job because just getting a worker needs their consistency. Like everybody, they need to know they're going to get paid and they're going to be able to show up on a regular basis, and that's just 101 at being an employer. So I get purchase orders, but it's not like huge pipeline. So, and I'm still kind of doing product development for my people food line, and my pet food line is a very competitive business. So I kind of get orders, and then it's quiet. So I've been kind of muddling through and doing batches, everything myself, which as an entrepreneur, it's something you have to be prepared for.
Tough.
But anyway, so that's the point. So like I definitely want my prices to be lower, and I feel like I can be more aggressive on that once I have more volume. I think it's a catch-22 of like getting more business. But at some point, you lower your prices, and the sales can. You have to do it.
Are you involved with the Canine Shop at all? Do you know them?
It rings a bell.
Canine Shop. They have all. They're the. I mean, my opinion, they're one of the best dog food shops on the island, especially.
Okay.
They have locations in Northport. I think they're in Oceanside or Lynbrook.
Okay.
No, it's Lynbrook, Massapequa,
Okay.
and Bohemia.
Oh, nice.
I didn't know if you knew them or not. I would love to put you in contact with them.
Cool. Yeah.
They've been on the podcast as well. I would love to make that connection because they do all natural dog treats, and I'm sure they would love to do something that's local.
Yeah.
Because they love working with new people. Get away. He just has a way. He winds up gravitating right towards the wheels.
Rub against the wall.
Oh my God. He gets closer and closer. But I think that would be a great link up between you two. So after the show, I'll definitely reach out to them and have them contact you.
My the challenge, like individual stores are, for my size, probably are good, but in a way are not good because it can be very challenging. The order size, your time invested, and then trying to get paid also is like almost every store business. There at some point you have to chase them down to get your check, and
unfortunately, this sounds like every industry.
It's crazy.
Every industry.
And so if you have to do it for an individual store, it's so time consuming and a headache. And so you'd rather at least be for a company with like 4 locations or something like that.
Yeah. No, they've been doing a great job. Rob and Anya, they're awesome. Just same thing, same type of situation that we were in. You just want to create something that's better for our best friends. That's really what it wound up being.
They make products too?
No, they go to all the trade shows and they find out who's making the most natural and new stuff for the dogs. They sell the antlers, and they sell the Kenji loves the mussels. I give him real mussels, frozen mussels.
Nice.
I give him duck feet, chicken feet. He won't eat the dehydrated versions. He'll eat the real raw versions.
Wow. Nice. Huh.
So he'll eat those, and then I get the actual company. There's a piece of black pepper. The company that makes Canine Cravings, which is the roll of raw food that I feed him.
Okay.
They import it in all the canine shops. So that's a company in Maryland.
Oh, wow.
And it's like the chicken meat, the bone, the tissue, the organs, all in the roll.
Okay.
So I give him, he gets 15 ounces in the morning and 15 ounces at night.
Nice.
My man eats. My man eats.
Do you do vegetables as well, or any type
So there are
of
veggies in the roll.
Okay.
How much? I think it says a percentage on it.
Okay.
But I mean, if it's not meat, he's not eating. Like he's eating the meat.
Yeah.
He will not take fruit. He will not take anything. No blueberries. He won't take anything.
Wow.
He will only take chicken or you're just shut off. He'll only take certain things, and just like that's his thing. So yeah, you learn. He was super stubborn with the food when I first got him.
Okay.
He drove me nuts. He did not want to eat anything that wasn't bones.
Wow.
He wanted the turkey necks and the duck heads and he wanted to eat all that. And then when it came down to like eating the actual meat, organs and all that stuff, he'd snub it. He'd eat a little bit of it. Then he'd give me problems. And then the epilepsy started.
Wow.
And then I think the seizures had a lot to do with his blood sugar, to be quite honest with you. I really do. Because the more unstable his eating schedule was, the more I saw unbalanced reactions on that side from him. And then we put him on medicine. It got better for a little while. Then he would start having one a month again. And then we put him on the new medicine this past October, and it takes like 6 weeks to load into the system. And then November technically was his last seizure. So that was his last one that he's had. But that medicine has made him more hungry. So he eats on a very good schedule now. 8 a.m., he gets his food. 8 p.m., he gets his food. And he's good. Like that's
good.
Yeah, he's not, he'll of course snack. He's a dog. Like he loves snacks. But generally, I mean, that's his meal times, and he's ready to go, and he cleans the plate since 7 months now.
Wow. Yeah, you'll get a gauge. You gauge
Like a
his
kid.
activity level. Yeah,
Like a kid.
how much energy he needs to make it through the day, and you got to keep an eye on his health all the time.
You're a great dad.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And someday you'll be hopefully a dad of a child.
I appreciate it.
And I want to add one more thing. You know, I used to work in the welfare department, my first job out of the Army. And
There we go. You guys saw me. I was reaching for the board.
so a lot of the mothers were poor people, poor black, poor Hispanic people, poor white people. I was in my 20s, and everybody said, why are they having more kids? Why are they having kids?
Wow.
It's a common question. And then I learned why they want to have kids. You know why they want? Do you know why?
Hit me.
They want to love something. They want to love somebody.
Yeah.
It's so important to love somebody,
Yeah.
a person or an animal. Without it, you might as well be dead.
Yeah.
If you can't love anybody, what's left in your life?
It's tough. It's tough because there's a lot of, and obviously kids are a whole different ball game, but pets as well. I mean, the responsibility is huge.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't understand that when they sign up for this commitment, this lifelong commitment. My opinion, and you're going towards the thing again. in my opinion, it's like, if this is a lifelong commitment and you have to be ready for the ups and the downs. It's like a marriage, right? Like you have to be ready for the ups and the downs. Not every day is going to be an amazing day. Unfortunately, it's a roller coaster. So you have to take it as the rolls and the rides come. So you get a puppy, you think that it's going to be this, oh my God, it's a puppy. It's the cutest thing in the world. And then 2 years in, he starts having seizures. And you're like, oh, wow. And the life expectancy of an Akita is 12 to 15 years. So, and they'll live full lives with epilepsy, totally fine. But you have to keep that under control. There's certain things you have to know. Medicine every 12 hours. Like there's a lot of things that go into it. And unfortunately, sometimes you can feel the burden of having such a lockdown schedule where it's like, oh, you got to go. I can't go to dinner at 8:00 because he needs his seizure pills. So it's like, I could be there by 8:30. I could be there by 9, or I can do it before and then have to go home afterwards. But I have to be like somewhat around the house at this time. Or vacations. He won't let anybody besides my mom administer the pills.
Wow.
Or me. So it's like, now you can't go on vacation unless mom can watch him. So it, people don't think about those things in the long run, but you think about those things. And if that's the hardest part that you have to deal with in return of having a best friend, having this amazing buddy, like that'll protect me to the death. I mean, it's unreal when you look at some of these situations. It's like, why would I not give him everything I could? And it's not a burden when it comes down to it. It's like, it's just an obstacle that we have to do because he doesn't know anything. Let's just talk about it like with epilepsy. He doesn't know anything's wrong with him. He has no idea. He doesn't even know what happens. He doesn't even realize. He just feels a little weird after for however long. So it's like, if that's my responsibility. I said when I picked him up in Minnesota, that's my guy. That's my guy for life. And I had the opportunity to bring him back to yeah, I had the opportunity. She had said, listen, I understand this is huge. This is a lot if you never need because your lifestyle of traveling and this and that. And I was like, I couldn't even fathom it. It's like, it's in the back of your mind when it's fresh. You're just like, but he was like, I couldn't even think about it. That's my man. I wouldn't be able to, every day that he's not with me, I would be thinking about, is he good? Like, is everything okay? I picked him up when he was 16 weeks old, and he was 20 pounds. Yeah. And he looked at me and he was just like this little ball of fur just sitting there. And I went, all right, that's my guy right there. Like, I know. And I'll show you the picture. It was crazy. And then we drove 23 and a half hours back, one trip. We didn't stop at all because COVID just started. So we had no idea what was going on yet. So we drove right back. My mom's like, do you want to stop for hotels? I go, I have no idea what's going on. Let's just get home. And we drove Minnesota right back to New York. It was a crazy ride, but he was the best little guy. He just slept in the crate. He was hanging out. So you got to remind yourself of these things. And I could definitely understand when, people just want to be loved. Listen, I've been single since, on the relationship side, I've been single since 2019. I've been single since 2019. I've dated here and there. Okay. Nothing that's blown me off my feet where I'm like, this is amazing. This is the one. And unfortunately, you as humans, we want that connection. Like you do. Because the more that we're in isolation, the more it sucks. Let's be honest. Like you want to have a person. So having a puppy, that's why I'm sure a lot of people have kids outside of marriage too. And not that there's anything wrong with that. Like do whatever is your situation. Like do your thing. Like I think everybody has situations that get thrown at them all day, every day, week, months, whatever, that they have to overcome and deal with whatever the situation is. So like, if that's what your situation has turned into, then you have to own it.
I went to the gay pride.
Oh, right here,
right by the farmers market.
Yeah.
It was a tremendous amount of joy from the participants.
Yeah,
they were really happy.
Yeah,
I'm big on if something makes you happy, do it. Like just do it. Just do what makes you happy. Life's too short, And guess what? The people that don't want to see you happy, or the people like whatever it is, the people that have any problems with it, they're never going to change. So there's no use in trying to get your energy and screwing up your inner peace with trying to make people think or feel differently. It just is what it is. Somebody hates a certain person, or somebody hates a drink, or they hate an animal. They're always going to hate an animal. Or they're always going to hate this thing. So it's like, just focus on you, be happy, be present, do your thing with the people that are similar to you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my biggest thing. Tribalism. I read the book Tribes. It was awesome. And it talks about how the lack of tribalism in modern day society has actually caused more problems than it did back then. Wow. Where there were people that were in cities of wartime during World War II, World War I, where even though there was constant shellings and bombings and all this stuff, because everyone was banded together for a common cause, common good of like protecting one another, after the war ended, people actually had worse problems, depression-wise, anxiety-wise, after the fact, because they weren't in that tied, close-knit realm again. Without ranting too much, I told you before we cut the mics on, I played Magic the Gathering last night with my buddies. I'm tired of playing digital games. I really am. I'm tired of like FaceTiming and the disconnection of everybody. We're the most connected, disconnected society that's ever existed in the world. So it's like to be able to like, obviously we had our phones, but to be able to have 5 people sit here, have music on, kicking back, you build a deck that is for some reason resonating with you in the way that you want to play the game. And everyone just has fun in the moment presently together, as opposed to like staring at these screens where if you took these screens away, we look like morons. It's the weirdest thing in the world. You take these screens away, it's like walking around on the sidewalk like this. It's just crazy. So I said a lot.
Well, to add to that, I would say in terms of social, to tie it back to food a little bit. Sadly, in a way. So one of the objectives of a product developer, I always see myself as a food scientist. You can do a lot of different things within food science, but you can be I thought product developer was the coolest kind of job because you're making a new product. You're maybe marketing would come to you, or you can do you are the marketing person, but you have certain attributes the product has to have, and then you have to design it and select ingredients and everything that goes into it. But the process or whatever temperature, cooking, and everything. But a chef, maybe they prepare food. There's a huge social aspect of food, and a food scientist is more. They can. A lot of food is convenience food, and that I think. How can convenience food, does it contribute to a healthier socialization of people, or does it take away? And I maybe more so take away because, I'm sure that it's really just people need convenience, but there's fast food. But ultimately, a lot of people are eating alone.
Or I eat my car. I'll grab a Chipotle bowl and I'll just eat it in my car.
Yeah,
quick, shovel it down because I got podcasts or a shoot to go to, or I'm running home to him if he's not with me. Like most of the time, he's with me, but I have to run home to him, or I'm getting a jujitsu, or I'm going to the. It's like I'm just constantly going somewhere, and because I'm alone most of the time because I'm doing everything by myself, it's it's a very isolated solo type mission.
And so if food be in a way, if technology and science hadn't solved food to be more convenient, if it was difficult, you'd have to go and cook it, and therefore you'd probably, if you're cooking food, typically you have to do it in a social setting with your family or friends. And so in some ways, that's one of these books I read was by Freud, was Civilization and Its Discontents. It's a very hard, the translation, I couldn't find a good English translation, but it was one thing that struck me was Freud observed how technology isolated people from their families more, and that like the advent of the telephone actually or advanced transportation separated people geographically more, and so now like you're less close to your family as a result. So in a way, technology, I mean, you could say, oh, Zoom calls kind of compensate, but how often do we do that? Whereas if you're actually in the same house, but do people really want to live in the same house as their parents? Arguable. Maybe it's we like our independence initially, and then it's good to be with the family. So it's just technology has, nothing's perfect. Things have their downsides.
Yeah, of course. I saw on TikTok there was a family compound, they call it. So they buy a huge plot of land that everyone, the cousins, the aunt, like everyone's got their own house, and then there's a garden in the middle and like a communal space for everyone to like eat and hang out and do all the activities and whatnot, fire pits and this and that. And so, self-sustaining to a certain extent, and maybe they have chickens.
It wasn't Waco, Texas.
It was not. No.
Bad joke.
Yeah, it was not.
But yeah, I think that's pretty cool. That's a really everything. But then the grass is always greener. And
of course, there's always
a reason why civilization kind of gravitated this way in a way.
Well, whether it be right or wrong, things typically wind up course correcting themselves in time. Mm-hmm. So, I hate to say the history repeats itself, but I've seen that there's a huge trend in people kind of going backwards in certain areas, whereas they don't want this high-paced, rushed lifestyle anymore. They're actually, especially.
I would say backwards. I say returning.
Returning. I like that. No, yeah, because regression, you'd think that it was like in a bad way. Yeah. But yeah, returning back to more of a slower paced, enjoying your days, being more present.
I think that's why people want to work from home too, is because they have more free time and less pressure and less the commuting and everything. And it's great if you can make it work in your life. And
if the same job gets done,
you're right,
at the same efficiency,
and
I see no problem in it. But if you have people that are screwing off and it's a problem, of course, but it's a tough balancing act. But on the topic of food being, because of the convenience factor more so, have you ever seen the Blue Zone documentaries at all on Netflix?
I've heard of that. That's where people live in like
the centennials, the more people that live over 100. It's a very interesting. There's one on Netflix, super interesting. There's a general theme though, and it is community, and it is people coming together. Huh. And not only is it not engorging yourself on tons of refined foods and whatnot, but it's and eating more whole, natural foods, legumes and stuff like that, oily fishes, like really hearty stuff. But you notice that in all these places like Sardinia, Italy, and Okinawa, Japan, and there's a spot in California. I forget the one Blue Zone in California. I forget the name of it. It's like it's an odd name, but regardless. And then there's another in Greece as well. Okay. But you see these people coming together for meals and making whole foods, real foods, and they're not really playing into the convenience factor. So that definitely, without question, plays a huge pack.
Yeah, I mean, when I go to the supermarket and I eat the whole thing, looking at other people's carts and what they're getting, and there are the people who are stocking up on bottled water. There are those, if you see those people, like the whole cart's man, I guess I get it. I have a water filter. I installed that because I like to do plumbing. And if you don't have one, then that's the only other route. Tap water. I mean, I think tap water in New York City is actually remarkably very good. But outside of New York City, I've never been to another city where I thought the tap water was good. So we're but Long Island tap water, it really has a real funky.
Have you ever? You use tap water in Long Island?
When I was a child, I drank out the hose. That ended there. Yeah, no, I filter all my water. Okay. I filter all my water. I use a zero water filter just because I rent and I don't have. I really want to do an osmosis, a double osmosis water filtration system, but
reverse osmosis.
Reverse osmosis, not double. Yeah, reverse osmosis.
Double filter. Sometimes
it's double filter, but reverse osmosis. Yeah. But the issue with it is that they have countertop ones. They're not that great. You really want the under the sink one. And I'm not going to install that in a rental
I
apartment.
still have in my apartment in the city. I have occasionally nightmares that the thing's gonna leak when I'm not there, and the whole place.
Yeah, it's going to be done. Yeah.
And my mom, I installed one for my mom, and like twice the filter leaked. And she was and I had to like sneak in when I'd come at night for the farmer's market, and I actually installed the water filter when she wasn't looking, a new one. And she's like, "Wait, this is on." And I was like, "Yep, it's been on for 3 weeks and it didn't leak." And she was like, she wouldn't let me do it if she had known, because she was worried about she has a nightmare that she'll go on a trip and all the place will be flooded. But they're really nice to have. But yeah, people. So they're in the supermarket. You have people buying water. Then there are people who just buy like sugary, like everything, junk food, no produce, no vegetables, no fresh fruit, and so yeah, there's that's why at least my products I could feel as a processed food. It falls into it still technically is processed, but it's
processed by dehydration.
Yeah, it's like So I actually wrote when I was working many years ago for a company. There's one of the trade magazines in the food industry. It's called Processed Foods, and I wrote a letter to them saying you need to change the name of your magazine because there needs to be a better name. There's Food Technology Magazine, and it's put out by the Institute of Food Technologists, IFT. And Processed Foods is another one. And I never heard back, but I was like, I was already hearing, this is like in 2002, people saying processed foods, it's really a bad term. There needs to be another term for it. But yeah, there's good processed and bad processed.
You want a tomato?
I love a tomato.
Oh, he's a big
he wants a tomato. Yeah, get that tomato.
What else do I have here? And
Do you see my guy jump up again when I opened it up to get a pear?
I noticed.
Bro, you better relax.
terrible. Well, he can have the if you like pears.
He won't eat pears.
No?
And dogs have pears?
Yes. No.
Yeah, see, nothing that's not meat. He won't eat it.
That's right.
And so I focus on apples too are great. There's just cinnamon on there. Dogs can't have cinnamon. I have a plain one though.
He won't eat it.
No.
It's okay. He's all right.
But yeah, the
I'll give him a duck head tonight. He'll be all right.
Nice.
A duck.
See, I told you.
A duck head.
Yeah, he eats a whole duck head.
We'll give him a chicken here. Let's do that. A little bit. Keep him.
Thank you. All right, come here. Come over here. Lay down. Lay down. You got my man. Anytime he hears a bag now in here, he's like, "Oh, what are we doing?"
Yeah, that's a real thing. It's
Yeah.
a real thing. I've heard from many customers that the sound of the crinkle of the bag, the dog will get going. Yeah, but I've been learning about. I started with apples because they're just ubiquitous in when I from my suppliers. They have all these different apple varieties, and I've already heard about dehydrating apples. Originally, I was doing them it's very hard to get the texture crispy when you dehydrate. The moisture has to be so dry. You have to keep running the dehydrator gently at this low temperature, and it'll immediately even if you open the bag, it'll start to get kind of flexible. And so now I'm just like, it's going to be flexible. I could either load it with desiccants, and you're just kind of fighting with it.
Yeah,
the texture isn't even that much,
No,
arguably better. So, but then I started to put walnuts into the recipe along with sometimes I put cranberries. He's sniffing it out. Oh, we got to put it up here, I think. And various nuts are really healthy for you, especially walnuts are high in omega-3. Not everybody knows that. Pecans are really delicious. They don't have omega-3 like walnuts, but they're delicious. I always liked them. And almonds I started putting onto some of these recipes. Apricot, like little bits of apricots onto there. So it's you got them under control. So I've been really excited to have a diverse product line, something that that and it's a good flexible tech. For some reason, it's like a nutrition bar is usually has a chew to it, not a crisp. There are some, but more often it has a chew, and it's a texture that mentally, whatever it is, we're associated with being the proper texture. So I've been building up that product line, and I had a challenge with black garlic. So I didn't even mention black garlic.
I was about to ask you. Yeah,
So-
you don't have any with you, do
I have
you?
a little bit.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I only have this Tupperware container. I sold all the black garlic I
Good, man.
I have a fresh batch going now. It lasts. It was invented. So people don't know, black garlic is caramelized garlic. It's regular garlic. I use garlic not from China, and we could use this little plate here. And so you can see after heating it continuously for about 3 weeks. Yeah, you could kind of like cut it with a knife. And
Like butter.
Yeah, so I often describe it as like avocado-like texture. This one came out a little more firm.
You never had it before?
No, I had it when you guys gave it to me last year. It was
Oh,
great.
cool. Yeah. So you can definitely help yourself. I have it every day with my eggs, but it's famous for the show Bob's Burger did a whole episode about it.
Did they really?
That was like really the only television or anything movie. I mean, I think a lot of chef shows have done it. Celebrity chefs have used it, but overall, and you'll find it in restaurants, but usually very sparingly because it is a very expensive product to make because of the amount of time and energy it goes into making it. So it has to be heated continuously. You can do it in 3 weeks, but if you rush it that quickly, it will dry out. So what it is, it's called the Maillard reaction, Maillard. It's a caramelization reaction, the most common caramelization reaction of cooking. It's where proteins break down to amino acids, carbohydrates break down to sugars, and the amino acids and the sugars combine. And what's happening is actually on the molecular level, an OH and an H are coming off of the two molecules, and it becomes H2O. And the two molecules bond together, and then they start to react further, and they're called like amidori rearrangement. There's all these very complicated molecules, but to kick it off, it's a sugar and an amino acid in the food combining.
Sorry.
Okay, it's okay.
You're
Like for a guy,
you're now known as his snack dealer. I'm sorry.
a treat dealer. Actually, it was on.
Come here.
Yes.
Hey, you. Go lay down. Go.
We're in this pack now.
Yeah, that's it. He's like, oh wait, you got the goods over there.
So I love introducing people the Maillard reaction. They maybe have heard of it, but then when you saute food, it's kind of eye-opening because I love one aspect of chemistry is reactants and products. And the product of the Maillard reaction, one of them is water. And so whenever you have a chemical reaction, you need to get that product out. So what happens is it evaporates when you're sauteing. But if you boil food, it's just eye-opening. When you boil food, you never get caramelization because you're submerging the food in water. You don't really notice when you're cooking. You're like, oh yeah, there's steam coming up. But actually, there is some of that chemical reaction occurring, and the water is vaporizing from the chemical reaction of the Maillard reaction. And so when you boil food, you'll never get caramelization because you're submerging the food in that water and inhibiting it. So it's kind of cool. But boiling is a whole other cool food science thing called gelatinization. That's the term they use. And that's when, especially starches, they say gelatinization of starches. So within a seed, a flour is just a milled up seed. And this ties into people who say they're gluten intolerant. I believe part of it is this not fully hydrated starches that you're eating. It's actually at the microscopic level a granule, a bound up starch molecule, a carbohydrate. And when you boil food, you're unwinding the granule, and it becomes all swollen and spongy, and that's because the water is permeated and unwound the molecule. And then when you eat it, your body's enzymes can get into the carbohydrate and break it apart into sugars and digest it. So basically, when you're bread, I've never heard anyone study this. Sort of my theory is that breads, when bread is made, you are taking this flour, which is it's still that granule that's undigestible, really, or difficult to digest, and then you're mixing water with it, make it to a dough, but it still hasn't been heated to unravel it. It's just sort of gummy, and then you're putting it in an oven, and you're maybe let the yeast rise, but still. Maybe the yeast works on. Usually they add sugars sometimes to kickstart the yeast. Really well fermented breads, they may have some sugars being broken,
like sourdough.
Yeah, but even then, I think I don't think you're really getting a good breakdown of the starches. And then you bake the bread and you crystallize it, and you get it really hard again. And so when you eat bread, you're eating like unbroken down granule. Like the granules are still there of the starch, and then now you've really hardened it up even more. So I think that a lot of it is just bread is depending, like a real hard bread.
So you're saying that that's more so where the gluten intolerance would come from?
Possibly, like people saying,
on the digestive side of things.
Yeah, it's really not the gluten; it's the starch itself is as a bread form. Whereas I think if you try eating like rice has been in a rice cooker, really gummy and soft. If people say they have issues with rice, I'm kind of curious. Like I don't personally. It would be an interesting experiment. Like if you're out there, you have you think you have maybe gluten intolerance or sensitivity to bread. If it doesn't, I think rice still has gluten, if I'm not mistaken. So there's like high gluten rice, low glutinous rice. You heard the term. But basically, if you can tolerate rice, and chances are it's like wheat's okay. So the thing is, we tend not to eat wheat like rice. Like you usually don't see wheat berry, or is actually just wheat as a grain, and you can get like Bulgar wheat and boil it and eat it like rice. But it's just not as common in the Western diet. We eat a lot of bread. So it's sort of an interesting food experiment. If you're at home, you can always try that and see. Maybe you can eat wheat, and wheat's a good grain. It's healthy as well. So just something to consider. But yeah, I don't know, like softer, how do you compensate? Like you might find there's a bread brand that you can digest better, like Dave's Killer Bread.
Dave's Killer Bread, I have a better time digesting with.
And
Dave's Killer.
I think it's sprouted, which I think the enzymes...
And it's not enriched.
And not enriched.
So they don't add the extra iron in.
Good. Okay, there you go. That's good too. Yep. That helps you. So, but the sprouting, I was intrigued by. I thought there'd be cool stuff. Maybe I can do something with sprouting of in my products, grains and stuff. But mainly, so one of my website is Pulsar-Foods, and I named it after the pulse, which is a it's kind of, this isn't quite related to wheat gluten, but it's just sort of one of my other favorite foods that I want to work more with is the pulse is it's related to a bean, a legume. It is a low fat, it's like the most efficient protein source grain. I don't know if it really qualifies as a grain. It's because it sort of gets to be a gray area, like is a tomato a fruit or a vegetable, sort of like that.
Yeah.
It's technically a fruit. We classify it as a vegetable. But the pulse is so the most common example of a pulse is a chickpea, garbanzo bean. It is, it's very low fat and it's very high protein for a raw food. Whereas, the distinction is a soybean is a legume, and that's high fat. So normally you find a lot of defatted soy flour and soybean oil. Those are really high fat legumes. That's what makes a legume a legume. Is it has naturally a lot of oils. Whereas pulses are like the most efficient thing, and even to defat it to make it edible. And so that's why I kind of like in my future, I hope to make, if I were to ever like extrude a product, I'd make a pulse product. And that's why you see, I think, chickpea chips, but they tend to still be kind of fried. So but I think there's more like
there's an opportunity for it.
There's an opportunity. I think in Africa, they actually eat a lot of pulses. It's a very efficient grain. So for nutrition, for feeding the masses, it's one of the best grains out there, one of the best foods out there. So yeah, pretty, anyway, so background as a, things I'm interested in as far as food science, what might be on the horizon. But black garlic is delicious. I was
going to ask you, what's the health benefits of the black garlic?
Yeah, great question. I actually bring with me my black garlic book here. This is this book has been through a lot of demonstrations of people, but I have here. So this is like a summary I always do for folks at the farmer's market, and I always say, are black garlic benefits even more than raw garlic? Question. That's a question. So these are the summary benefits: loaded antioxidants, helps fight cancer growth, boosts heart health, preserves cognitive function, stabilizes blood sugar, kicks up immunity. So all these have a lot of research behind it, but it boils down to and garlic already being really healthy for you. There's an antioxidant in garlic that makes it one of the things that really makes it so healthy. It's been isolated as the most healthy part of garlic is this molecule, sulfur allyl L-cysteine, SAC. And I found a study from Taiwan. It's on my website. And they analyzed different methods of making black garlic. But overall, on average, this antioxidant from going from raw garlic to black garlic goes up by 444%. So about a 5.4 time increase on average. And
how long does it take to make the black garlic?
it takes minimum 3 weeks. My process is 2 to 2.5 months.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's a long.
So
time.
so the bulb I just ate is
heated for 2.5 months to get to that texture, because I prefer it really spreadable. So that level,
that you could definitely spread if you wanted
I've gotten
to.
a
You want to
little
just mash
spreadable. It may have been open, so it got a little dried out during the day. But overall, you pop it open, you could spread it. Usually, it's avocado texture. That's my goal, and that's super hard with that butter. It has the most flavor when it really is very soft, and you can get whereas if you have it as a firm texture, it's like it just there's less enjoyment out of it. But it takes a long time. Nutritionally, though, they give it to people with untreatable cancer, people with untreatable cancer in Taiwan. So it's just an incredible sponge for free radicals which can damage your DNA, and that's what contributes to cancer, especially. There's been a lot of, but it actually had nutritional benefits for heart disease and cholesterol. So this one was black garlic improves heart function in patients with coronary heart disease by improving circulating antioxidant levels. And they had they compared. This one had. They actually like studied it within a test tube. They put the black garlic and white garlic and compared the two. And this was the ability to absorb free radicals. And it went up by over 3 times the amount of ability to clear free radicals from the test tube. So it was really a very powerful antioxidant.
Isn't that awesome how they give food in other countries?
What?
For certain medical treatments, they actually recommend that you eat certain foods that are going to actually help that.
Well, to add to that, I don't know exactly what medically and I don't want to advocate Steve Jobs famously didn't pursue chemotherapy, I think, and he died because they said it was a treatable form of cancer, and he didn't go in for it. So these are untreatable forms, so I don't want to advocate not seeing a doctor if you can, or having your treatment done if you can, but I know from working at Nature's Bounty, supplements are much more heavily regulated, and the potency is extremely guaranteed. Not that they're not guaranteed, but there's much more. Like Nature's Bounty was a great company for its laboratory, but there are a lot of unreputable companies not guaranteeing the claims and potency. In Europe, they have their own regulatory bodies, and they treat supplements more like a drug. I think they're much more expensive, though. There's always a downside to this stuff, but I think the quality is very high there. And I don't know how much they use those supplements. I mean, I haven't been through Europe enough to know exactly how much they're using them and doctors are recommending them. But America has those so-called holistic, quote-unquote, doctors, and I think they're using supplements more. But I think it takes a long time. Once the damage is done to your body, it's hard to, you really change your whole diet. And I think it's not just take a pill, although, certain things can really help. But you got to really eat whole foods and everything. Yeah. So no, not just the store, but just it's a good name of a store, but it's true. Whole foods are super important in all these processed things.
Before Amazon bought them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before Amazon bought them.
Yeah. So I don't want to slam them. I would love if they carried my products, and maybe one day there's no reason why not. But yeah, there's that ties into the whole thing of organic. I've had people at farmers market asking me about organic. I think pesticides are the biggest thing that people are worried about, and I don't have a firm answer. I contacted the grower of my apples, and they gave me an answer. It was we use pesticides within. It was almost within legal limits, and I was but they said they send to an external testing lab all their apples, and they said that they're always to check that the pesticides are not getting into the apples, and they said that their results were always good. I don't know what exactly that meant, so there is some concern there. But organic, I think that there's two aspects to organic. There's the pesticides, and then there's the fertilizer. And then fertilizer, to me, I don't think you could feed the world off of organic fertilizer. I don't know if it's really, because people don't know, maybe they do, that the fertilizer used for conventional produce is they need produce. Plants need a nitrogen source, and I'm not an agronomist, but they need a nitrogen source, and they basically we lived very as subsistence people. Civilization did at the turn of the 1900s or 1800s. People were farmers, and it was actually the advent of I don't know if people know urea is actually used. So that urine that is organic, and then urea is the high nitrogen version of it's the same molecule. It's just isolated. And there was some Nobel Prize level chemists who came up with the process for synthesizing urea. And that became so rather than having to use animal waste as a result. And so, and there's compost, there's food scraps, things like that you can use. But on a large scale, feeding the world, I'm not convinced that it can be done practically, economically. So unfortunately there should be a third category of like low pesticide or approved like healthy. There's no transparency in pesticides, and I think that's the problem. I think synthetic fertilizers are kind of necessary to feed people, but I think that the pesticide thing is sort of like an unanswered question. So yeah.
I mean, you had brought up oats before as being one of the best nutritionally for breakfast and whatnot. And for years I did that with the bodybuilding world. But one of the issues though is the high glyphosate numbers that's on oats.
Interesting.
So unless you're getting an oat brand, which there is one, I think it's like it's the company called Sprouted or something like that. They do no glyphosate, no nothing. All tested oats, and that's what
But is it certified organic or?
I believe it is. I could be wrong.
I mean, maybe though certain things you grow can grow. Maybe they don't. I don't know.
I don't know. Listen, it's a part that we're not both. Neither of us are involved in.
Yes.
So it's we don't understand that part.
Another person, a fourth person.
Yeah, I need a fourth person, and eventually I'll get somebody on that knows about that.
Actually,
stuff.
you meet amazing people at the farmers market, and I think yesterday I met someone who studied agronomy at Cornell, who and I don't know exactly. I was like I got his contact info from his mother, and it was pretty. You never know you meet interesting folks that I've met more
you guys
people in my farmers market. Yeah, more people in my whole life doing the farmers market. So it's a wonderful thing about it, and it's been really interesting. But yeah, it's just I could go on about just name dropping people. Which some people may or not be impressed by, but it's kind of cool. So yeah, it's been a really great experience, and having my dad along for the ride has been a lot of fun.
What have you guys done like in the off season of the farm? Do you go somewhere else and do it?
I keep doing it. I do it once. Was it once every 2 weeks? Once a month? This year I did once a month at the Huntington Indoor Market.
I didn't even know they had an indoor market.
Yeah, it was at the Cinema Arts Center, and then they just moved it this past year to another arts center. And it's not quite as close to town, but it's a nice location. And I was doing Dick's Sporting Goods Public Lands on the Sundays or Saturdays, and I'd come from Jersey and do two in this area, and so that kept me going. I mean, I need to transition my business now more towards doing grocery store demos. So that's the next goal. But I'd like to find like the right fit. But Dick's Sporting Goods is a great upside potential.
Yeah, they
sell all my products. They sell my treats.
right by the Yeti.
It's incredible.
Right by the Yetis.
So cool. It took time, but they were pretty much always so friendly, and I think we had really great days there, and we always have great interactions with customers, and people are always really nice and friendly, and they're always. I hear the somewhat annoying thing. You should go on Shark Tank. Like, oh, dude. I mean, have you ever heard something like that? But it's. My former business partner, he wanted to do Shark Tank, and I said fine. So one day I took a day off, and we went to New York City ABC Studios, and we actually made it past the first round.
Oh wow!
Which only they said 4% of people make it past the first round. It's a pretty cool thing. But I was building the dehydrator, and he worked on the video, and I don't know what happened with it. I didn't participate. I'm like, I'm building the dehydrator, man. I'm not helping you with this video. I left it up to him, and he did it, and we never heard back after that. And I'm fine with it. But because I knew we weren't even with a distributor, I think. So I wasn't into very many pet stores. So even if you made it onto the show, they'd be like, "What are your sales?" And it would be not be like, I've seen people get on the
It'd
show.
be not something that they want to hear right
Yeah.
at the gate. They want to hear these astronomical numbers.
They may say come back.
Yeah,
Whatever.
they want to hear
then
these.
What's the point of all the effort?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you get the free
I need
exposure.
capital to get to the next level.
Right.
So that's really what I'm here for.
Right. So I didn't want to. To me, it didn't seem logical. And then once the dehydrator was going and we were getting some business, there wasn't a Shark Tank. Yes, it has its advantages, but and I'm sure the sales channels they open you up with is really what's worth it. And the exposure you get. I even talked to people. I went to a trade show. There's a couple huge trade shows for the pet food industry, and I met people who had booths who had been on Shark Tank. And they said, yeah, you get a bump in sales every time the reruns are on the air. But they said overall, they were kind of like wishy-washy about how maybe they were more optimistic about where their business would go.
I think there's more opportunity for you on the side of like pushing on social.
Interesting.
Through TikTok channels, through Instagram channels.
That's a whole other skill.
Yeah, I think that's what I deal with companies. I mean, that's the best way to go about it with direct to consumer. You're talking about your products. You're the guy, like, everything.
Yeah.
You don't need a spokesperson to do that. You could create short form content, clips, whatnot, and show people. And listen, dude, people love it. Just on the dog side, people love their dogs. And then once they found out that you make regular food for everybody, because snacks for the pet and for you, then it just opens up the entire ability to just have, I could order the treats for the dog and I could order a couple snacks for the family.
Right.
So I think that there's definitely some vertical opportunities on that for you.
Yeah.
We could talk about that.
Yeah.
We could talk about that, and I can lend you some expertise and tell you what I think would be good for you.
Yeah. Tips.
And just see where it goes. It's just consistency. That's what it is.
Yes.
You're going to spend your time going on Shark Tank, giving up a large portion of your company's value to earn some capital, or maybe you just start doing some micro reels and this and that, just showing people what you got going on, and the sales start exploding by yourself, and you still retain the entire evaluation of your company, the value of your company.
And it's fun for me. I like you said, you're meticulous. Like it's a time consuming thing, but there's a payoff to it. And but you do have to, you're doing video production. You're making a mini movie in a way, a short film. So it takes a lot of thought. But once you get it going, there's the people's expectations. Sometimes people are just walking with a phone talking, and like if you get that big at it, there's just content, put it out there. But
it happens, man. But there's plenty of clients that I've worked with where we didn't have to set up my $10,000 camera. We've done it with a phone, not necessarily because it was just a more efficient way of doing it. It was just quicker.
Yeah.
It was like we need to get this information out there right now, and it's easier to do this right this way. It doesn't have to be the cinematic adventure that we're going to make it.
Yeah.
Like it could just be, hey guys, what's going on? We're over here today, blah blah blah, this and that, done. True. It doesn't there's different equipment for everything.
Yes.
That's why I have different softboxes for my lights and different lenses for all of my cameras and different microphones. Like everything requires a different tool sometimes.
Yes.
And you can utilize all of them without just saying, I only use it this way or I only do this way. So
yeah, that's a good point. I add to that. My thought process is my email newsletter was actually a big encouragement for my dad. And we collect people's email addresses at the farmers market, and I entice them because I want to educate people and share my knowledge and get them, with knowledge you can be healthier. And so I try to tie it all in, but also what is the food and how is food made, and you just dig all more into it. And so anyway, it's
obviously a passion of yours, and you have fun doing it.
It's exciting. It's exciting to get when people like you see the light turn on, the light bulb and proverbial one, and then but having I want to be able to turn the email more into video, and so I did. So I did something recently for a New York State ag competition. I did a nice little video, a short video, but it was cool. But it's like, it's that balance. You have to if you keep doing it, you get slightly more efficient at it, and then you can. But it is. It's your time all the time, and you're like, what's a priority right now, and and then what is it's everything. You got to keep pushing everything forward a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
So
just continue like a plow.
Yeah.
Continually all areas you can do.
Pull your arms out.
And sometimes you go really slow. Yeah. Sometimes you just got to come back, get a little bit, come back, get a little bit. Yes. So it's just, it happens in progression.
Yes. Well,
dude, listen, man.
Yeah. It was a great,
I appreciate you for coming through and hanging out and treating up my dog
Yeah,
and treating
my
up,
pleasure.
treating up me.
Yeah, I
with,
wasn't sure. I have some. I'll come back with some chicken for you.
Oh, it's all
I
good.
wasn't sure what was your
Why don't
favorite.
you
But
leave the tomatoes?
yeah, have the tomatoes. Get
cool.
some
I
snack on these
appreciate you,
guys
dude.
here.
I appreciate you.
Um,
Where can let me get this for you. Where can people find your product?
Right now, my website for sure. Canine Bros is in quite a few stores. I have a store locator. You can go on Amazon too. You can go on my website for Canine Bros. For my people food and my treats, it's all on my web. Everything is also on my website. So I have a nice Shopify website. You can get everything there, which is if you go to caninebros.com or gourmet-magic.com or pulsar-foods.com. I just have it forward to the same website, and then you can kind of just pick your product from there. And
Perfect. Perfect. Well, listen, Dave, I appreciate you, Pop. I appreciate you coming through and hanging out with us. For everybody listening, I hope you guys learned a lot because there was a lot to learn. I mean, seriously, there was a lot to learn. Foods,
so.
Get some of these awesome treats, snacks for you, your pup. I mean, listen, single ingredient everything. I mean, that's the way that you'd hope to eat and be, and give that to your dog as well because they'll thank you with the extra. Hey, look, he thinks I'm about to give him something from the table. He's jumping all over the place. My man's acting like he hasn't eaten in days. That is so awesome.
And if you're ever, just say if you're in the area of Glen Cove or Huntington, you can always stop by the farmer's market and say hello. My schedule is on my website too. I have a link for my schedule, but yeah.
And Dick's Sporting Goods.
And Dick's Sporting Goods too. Yes,
Dick's Sporting
absolutely.
Goods.
Check it out.
Right by the Yetis and the 1 and 110. So if you're a New Yorker, some people are not from New York, but at Long Island, if you're a New Yorker, Long Islander, the 1 on 110 right in Melville. Right there, right by the Yetis, because I'm always looking at the different color Yetis, and then I look behind me, and he's looking at the treats, and I go, all right, let's go.
And it's an awesome store. Like my favorite stores have always been sporting goods stores and these outfitters like REI. But I think Dick's is kind of better because it has like everything. It has it's like an REI plus a Modell's in one. So it's such a fun store to go to in general. It's huge, bicycling and just like skiing, snowboarding every time.
The fishing and everything.
Yeah,
it's like, it makes you want to do things.
It does.
I walk in there and I'm like, damn, I gotta start doing things.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how I feel. So anyway, yeah, check it out.
Everybody like, share, subscribe, share the show, please, because it helps to continue growing it and allowing me to sit down with amazing human beings like the gentleman sitting across the table from me today. But on this note, I appreciate all y'all for hanging out with us. But for now, peace.